Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are going to break down why the New England Patriots should think about trading for Brandon Aiyuk. Yesterday, big announcement came out that Brandon Aiyuk formally requested a trade, so Ryan's going to break down why he wants the Patriots to go after them and why it would be a good fit for the team here. But before we do that, if you like a lot of New England Patriots content, we're going to be having a lot more Patriots content coming out as Ryan is a diehard Patriots fan. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also tackle that bell to get notified when new Patriots videos come out, including also all of our weekly prediction videos for the Patriots games throughout the season. So Ryan, I remember when even it was yesterday, we were texting each other, and I saw on Twitter that Brandon Aiyuk formally requested the trade. I'm like, hey, I want to do a Falcons video. We should go check out that video also. And you're like, I was just about to text you that I want to do a Patriots video. So this worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on why the Patriots should go after them, what he would bring to the team, what do you think it would cost the Patriots to bring him in? So I'll kind of hand it over to you why you like Brandon Aiyuk.
So Brandon Aiyuk is one of the top wide receiving weapons in the NFL. He was ranked second on PFF's board last year. To put that in perspective, Demario Douglas was ranked 36 on that list as the Patriots' top wide receiver. Next up was Kendrick Bourne, who ranked 56, who only played in, I believe, 8 or 9 games last year. So adding a guy like Brandon Aiyuk gives you that bona fide number one wide receiver that you do not have on this roster. He's a proven commodity. You don't have to really worry whether he is going to be one of these boom or bust draft picks or not. Come in, he's already developed. He's already a top wide receiver. Alex Van Pelt in this offense, I think, would love a guy that can consistently win on the outside. And I think you look at some of the receivers that are currently on the roster. Demario Douglas primarily plays in the slot. Kendrick Bourne kind of moves a little bit all around. Same with Jalen Polk that they just drafted in the second round. Even Javon Baker, while he does primarily play the X, he can move around the roster or move around the formation as well. And I think would be a really good complement to the rest of the roster here. And so they did make some other moves. Like last year, they signed Juju Smith-Schuster, who's most likely not going to make the team. Tyquan Thornton, if they go after Brandon Aiyuk, would definitely be off the roster. KJ Osborne and Jalen Reagor would probably be fighting it out for the 6th wide receiver spot, which would primarily be in special teams. So I really think not only to round out this wide receiver room, get that bona fide weapon, but you have a young quarterback in Drake May, who this offensive line, hopefully, while it is improved, is not going to be a top-notch offensive line in the league. Then this wide receiver room is definitely not going to be a top-notch wide receiver room in the league. I think, again, like the offensive line should be improved, but it's not going to be that great. But you get your young quarterback a weapon that he can grow with for the next 4, 5, 6 years, because Brandon Aiyuk is about 26. And I think that is a fantastic move to help increase the productivity of your young quarterback. Next, the Patriots have the cap space to extend him. They still have about $44 million left on this year's cap space. So they could front load his contract and give him a lot of guaranteed money in his first year, and then actually have a fairly team-friendly deal come the last 3 or 4 years of his deal, depending on how long that they extend him for. They also are first and second in the league in the next 2 seasons, second and first in the next 2 seasons in cap space, with about $85 million in available cap space in 2025 and $128 million available cap space in 2026. So this roster definitely has the budget to take on a player of his caliber. And so all in all, with all that being said, I think would be a good landing spot for Brandon Aiyuk. You actually have to go and make the deal with San Francisco now. And so I think to get to the last part of like, what do they have to give up? I compared him. He's a 2nd ranked receiver on PFF's chart. Tyreek Hill was recently traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins, and that trade consisted of a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, a 4th-round pick in 2022, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick in 2023. I think the Patriots will be in a little bit higher of a draft position than the Miami Dolphins were that year, which, again, I believe they gave up pick 28 in that specific draft. But I think New England could probably get away with like maybe a first round pick swap, maybe going from like the mid-teens to the late 20s, depending on where San Francisco's picking, plus maybe like an additional second and a future third. I think is probably the range and what New England is looking at in terms of price. So I have been talking a lot so far, so I want to throw it back over to you and give you a chance to respond to what all I've said.
So it's interesting too because I initially because there's one thing that you said to me that I think that makes it really possible, and the thing that I think that probably makes it less likely, and to me that's going to be the fact that it's the thing that makes it possible is you talk about the cap space because I think at the end of the day it's just going to be money, and also too if you go look at the New England organization, they have been pretty frugal with their money and. Just throughout the past couple of decades and how they've handled player contracts and everything. So if they were wanting to make this move, it would be the fact that they would be able to pay him a lot of this money right now, and it's still not damage their future when it comes out of their contracts.
Yeah.
Be like these teams like the Saints, who are always negative 80 million or something like that in their cap space. I think the thing for me though is, unlike the Falcons, and go check out the Falcons video, the argument that I make is I think the Falcons, have put together a team that can go and win the division and make a Super Bowl run. So adding Brandon Aiyuk will add that good second receiver, and probably honestly, to your point in that video, the number one receiver. I think you guys are still behind. I think offensively, I think there's still some questions. That being said, though, too, we thought the same thing about the Houston Texans last year with a rookie quarterback coming in that was picked second overall with very little offense to really show a lot of question marks. Texas one of the best defenses last year. Patriots also one of the best defenses last year, and you guys are keeping a lot of that same core as well, and you guys have improved on the offensive side of the ball. So maybe if they feel like, hey, this defense can be another top 5, top 10 defense, and we think with Drake May and the protection that we've added, the additional weapons that we've added as well, if we go and get this guy, maybe we can go back to that above-average offense and do something maybe similar to what the Texans did last year and actually make a playoff run. And then to your point, as well, is that they'll be able to extend for a much longer contract, being extremely team friendly. But do they want to do they want to risk their draft capital? Because if they don't have a Texans like performance, they potentially could be trading a top 10 pick or a top 12 pick, which is going to be extremely valuable for a team like the Patriots, kind of as they're still going through that rebuild. Maybe if they think they're going to be early enough, maybe the Niners will take a second round pick. So I think the one thing too, to your point with a Tyreek Hill trade comparison, Tyreek Hill has a lot more name recognition and I think a lot more X factors that Brandon Aiyuk doesn't bring to the table. So I think he's worth a lot more. Brandon Aiyuk is worth a lot, but I don't think it's going to be first, second, fourth, and then some additional ones after that. I think potentially a first is what I've been seeing the Niners have been wanting to ask. Typically, they ask high for that. I think a second rounder, maybe like a late day 3, would be sufficient. I'm curious to hear what Patriots fans think with your what you think on that trade compensation, and maybe a little bit more than that. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But it is possible. I think it depends if Gerard Mayo and the New England organization feel they're ready to win right now.
Yeah, and that is so. I think historically, you look at I say historically, in the last 8 years, you look at a lot of the teams that have risen up. So Kyler Murray proved that he was an NFL quarterback. So the Arizona Cardinals went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. I know that's probably not the best example because there wasn't a whole lot of success there, but you'll see the trend here in a second. So the Bills, Josh Allen proved enough that he was a franchise quarterback. They go out, they get Stephon Diggs. And so I think Tua is another example. Tua proved that he was good enough. They drafted Jalen Waddle. They went out. They made the investment into Tyreek Hill to get to a weapon. So I think, maybe it's jumping the gun a little bit by going out and targeting a receiver of this caliber. The only thing I will say is these receivers don't, especially at this point in their career, don't really become available all that often. And everybody was talking about T. Higgins and him potentially being available. T. Higgins is on this PFF list, and granted, I don't necessarily agree with this, is ranked 45th on the PFF list. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I big
But
issue with the PFF list because they're saying Brandon Aiyuk is second overall in the league at receivers.
yeah,
So in front of Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and
that is statistically, and PFF also does value receivers that play more of a traditional X role versus those that get production in the slot because it's easier to get production in the slot. So like there's a little bit of give and take there. With that being said, T. Higgins is a traditional outside X receiver. He isn't the separator or really the route runner that Brandon Aiyuk is. It's a whole nother caliber of receiver. And yeah, like, would that be great? Maybe save if you're debating between trading this first round pick for Brandon Aiyuk, not necessarily really knowing where it's at, versus keeping the first round pick and then potentially trying to go after T. Higgins next year. I think that is an argument to be had. However, if you get a trade offer accepted from San Francisco for Brandon Aiyuk, the whole T. Higgins thing is still up in the air. You get a whole season with Brandon Aiyuk this year for your young quarterback to go and develop with him. Will they make that move? No, it might be a little over aggressive. But I think in the long run, especially kind of looking at the depth of this upcoming draft class, specifically at the tackle and edge position, and then going and getting that weapon for your young quarterback, I think that like you could really make a solid case that, all right, look, I know we're going to give up this first round pick, but there's not a huge drop off between Will Campbell and tackle 6, who will be most likely available around our second pick. So like we'll scrap that and go and get a tackle and then an edge rusher in rounds 2 and 3, and then that's how we really speed up this rebuild. So I think you could definitely make a case for New England being not just a potential landing spot, but also a attractive landing spot for Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, and you just did. So I say that was good. So
yeah,
I think it'll be interesting. I'll be curious to even see if San Francisco wants to get rid of him. He wants to move on, and it seems like there's already a lot of teams that have been much more active, like Pittsburgh and the Commanders are the 2 teams that are been reported as the most interested. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. I think all 31 teams should at least be given a call, especially with 2. Yeah, and so just don't give them Kansas City. Don't be like the Bills and do work with the guy that keeps beating you. And so, but that's a separate conversation. But I think the Patriots, they're in an interesting position as well. Is just, do they want to give up draft capital at the risk of a guy who's going to be your potentially for a 1-year deal, unless you sign him for long term, but you're still going to give up that capital for a guy that still might not pan out within your guy's organizational system.
Well, if you trade him and he doesn't sign the extension this year, you franchise tag him and then do negotiations that way. If you trade him, especially for all that capital, you don't let him get out the door in free agency the next year.
That's true.
But I will say another thing too that might be maybe more comparable was AJ Brown, the AJ Brown trade. That was pick 18 and 104 for AJ Brown, and I will say I felt like the Titans got fleeced on that trade.
Oh yeah.
So like
think about all that they've lost. Well, that's a separate video, but yeah, the Titans definitely got fleeced.
But that's I think that would be a New England Patriots fans would be running. They'd be running to the stadium to make Elliott Wolf accept that trade. So all in all, I think it is exciting that this is a possibility for Patriots, but I'm not holding my breath, as I think they will probably be they will probably come up short in this race because chances are he's not going there. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you would do if the New England Patriots were able to actually trade for Brandon Aiyuk. Let us know how excited you would be. And on that, we will see you guys next time.